Hey everybody, it's Joshua Latimer. I'm hanging with Jan Ilunga on 360 Entrepreneur, and I'm excited.
This is episode 168, and today we're gonna discuss how to create a great customer life cycle. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey there, how's it going? Welcome here on the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. You heard it. I'm your host, Yanni Lunga. Super pumped about today's episode because this one is one of those episodes that I put onto the must-listen shelf. Because in this one, we're going to talk about something that is relevant to you if you're in business, okay? It doesn't really matter what niche you're in, what industry you're in, what you do, it doesn't really matter. If you're in business, you're in the right place, because today we talk about mindset, customer experience, and some of the things you can do to stand out, even if you're in a very busy niche. So again, regardless of the niche you're in, you're gonna get some advice on things you can do to stand out and to create a life cycle your customers are gonna love. And joining us today is Joshua Latimer, podcaster, entrepreneur, and the founder of sendgym.com. The show notes for today's episode are at yannilunga.com/episode 168. All right, here's the interview with Joshua Latimer from sendgym.com. Hey everybody, this one is really one of the episodes I consider must listen. So if you're here, you're in the right place. Make sure to grab some pen and paper or open Evernote or whatever you use for note taking, because this is a great one. We are joined by the founder of sendgym.com, software that helps you make follow-up easy. He's also the creator of Automate Growth Sell and the host of the Quick Talk podcast, a show that features interviews with high-level business owners. I'm so thrilled to welcome on the show Joshua Latimer. Josh, how's it going?
Oh, it's going fantastic. I'm super excited to dig into this. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. And Josh, the first question I have to ask you that I'm just curious about, and I have to be a bit selfish here, is where does the name Send Gym come from? Because I was really thinking, okay, your name isn't Jim, or is maybe your middle name Jim or something like that?
No, my middle name is not Jim, but the idea was, people listening have no idea what our software does, but it's software that helps you follow up with your customers. So we named it something to personify the software a little bit, to make it feel like it was a person. So it's like, you don't have time to follow up with all of your customers, your prospect, but Jim does, so send Jim. And we picked Jim because it's like the most generic male name on the planet, at least in the United States. So that's kind of why we went with that one.
Yeah, and it's easier to remember. So sendgym.com. So you said it makes the follow-up process easier. So can you tell us, Josh, a little bit of the backstory behind sendgym.com and why you decided to focus on follow-up? Like why for all the entrepreneurs and small business owners who are here with you and I, why is that important?
Well, sure thing. My story starts out with extremely humble beginnings. I am nobody special. I do not have all the answers. I'm not a guru. I was born in Flint, Michigan, which is a very poverty-stricken area here in the States. And, I was the first entrepreneur in my family, but my entrepreneurial journey actually started with a brick and mortar hometown local service company. So I wasn't always a software internet guy. Mm-hmm. I had a cleaning business for many years and I grew it and I struggled with it. I always joke that I have a bachelor's degree in pain and a master's in suffering because I've made so many mistakes. But long story short is that as I scaled my cleaning business, which started with nothing, living in a trailer park with my wife, we pushed it to almost $200,000 a month in cleaning business revenue. And the way that we did that was by focusing on relationship marketing rather than just transactional marketing. So follow-up has to do with nurturing the lifetime value of your relationship. So after you sell somebody something, it's critical that you have something in place, and our system helps make it easier for people to just stay in touch, to stay top of mind, to re-engage them throughout the whole relationship rather than just getting that money and moving on to the next customer.
Yeah, I mean, also because what you just told us, Josh, is really important for everybody to keep in mind that it's easier for somebody who had already bought from you to buy again rather than have somebody new buying, right?
Absolutely. I mean, your current book of business, whatever that looks like for you, is your company's most valuable asset for almost any business. And there's a huge neglect going on, especially with regular hometown businesses where they really don't get that. They're very transactionally minded.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what you said, Josh. And, I double down on that and I say not only local businesses, but even those that have a more global angle. I mean, you and I'm sure you see this too in the internet marketing and entrepreneurial space, where we have a more global perspective. There are people who kind of, as you said, focus only on the transaction and they don't nurture the people who are already interested in what they do and maybe they have already bought from them. So if you look at the people in your space and colleagues and stuff like that, we have already kind of touched on this a little bit, but what would you say are some of the common mistakes entrepreneurs and small business owners make that are kind of preventing them from generating more sales?
Well, I think there's lots and lots of mistakes.
Right, yeah.
From my own personal experience, I think it has to start with clarity, and it has to start with beginning with the end in mind. So Stephen Covey, it's a highly used quote, begin with the end in mind. But what does that really mean? Well, what it means is when we are hustling and grinding and slaving, and we're scared and we're stepping out and we're trying to build a business and it's small, what happens is we make ourselves numb to a lot of little things. And we don't know that we're doing it. It's so hard. I mean, even with podcasting, most podcasts start and then they fizzle out, right? Because they don't stick with it. I think that happens, and general failure happens because we don't create enough space in our life to just think about what we're trying to do with our business. And so you got to have clarity, and you have to have a clear, focused destination before you make any decisions until you can test this model and test that model and market this and market that. But, for me, I live in Costa Rica, and every single day for an hour, I get on a scooter and I drive down dirt roads where there's monkeys in the trees, and I just get quiet. I have to have clarity. And so for me, it's about being intentional with creating daily or weekly space for yourself to breathe and to think strategically about your business.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you told us, Josh, and I think it's very important to everybody to find their sweet spot to do what you just told us, whether that's driving a scooter, going for a walk, jogging, whatever that is for you. You really should do what Josh said, and I think is also important because the more clarity we have on our destination, the easier it is to decide when we are at an intersection when we have to decide, okay, should I go on the left or should I go on the right? Should I market here? Should I market there? Should I do this thing? Should I do that thing? If we are clear on what we are trying to do, if we have clarity on our destination, it's definitely gonna help us big time. And you said, I mean, you have really learned that the hard way, but I think it's always important to test things out by oneself. Josh, I talk about this concept. I kind of came up with the term the 3 T's that I say whenever I'm trying to learn something new related to my business and I get some advice, whether it's on a podcast like this, I read a book, I attend a summit, whatever, I always do 3 things. The first one is test. So I take what is being discussed there and I'm like, okay, this person has been having success with that, but does it mean that if I follow those steps, I'm going to have the success? I don't know until I try things out. So I test. And then the second T is track. So I keep track of the stats I'm interested in. And the third one is tweak. So once I have the data, I can analyze it and then I can tweak where necessary or move on to the next thing if things don't work out. So I like that. And I want to ask you, Josh, about you've written an article, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes with everything else we cover. You wrote a post where you talk about how to create an amazing customer life cycle. So this ties into what we were talking about early on, about the importance of network marketing, about focusing on people who have already bought for us. And we kind of want to create an incredible, really, customer life cycle where people, even if they don't know about us, they get to know about us, they get to know, like, and trust us, and then they become buyers, and then they become repeated buyers. So what are some of the things we should think about and do, Josh, in order to create this amazing customer life cycle?
Well, I'm excited to talk about that. Before I answer that, I want to make sure that people understand why you even need to care about a customer life
good
cycle.
point.
because the thing is it's all about perceived value. Okay, so for example, if you go out to eat with your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you go to a place that costs $200 for a single meal, everything about that whole dining experience is going to be different. It's going to be better. I mean, the napkin, the linen is thicker.
Right.
The silverware is heavier. The way that the servers wait on you is different. They're multilingual. They're high level. They're dressed to the T. I mean, I'm not trying to be cheesy. All I'm saying is that the steak that you order is probably a better cut and it's cooked better by a higher level professional, but the actual product isn't $200 worth of stuff. It's the whole experience.
Right.
And so no matter what business you have, we have the opportunity to create an experience for our customers, not just sell them our stuff. And yes, you need to have good stuff. And yes, you need to have integrity. But if you focus on the little itty bitty details or the touch points, whenever you're engaging that customer, whether it's a pre-sale opportunity or the way that you answer your phone or the way that you respond to an email, how long does it take you to respond to the email? Little things that they're not expecting that you include. When you map out for your business that whole, what I call the customer life cycle, you can identify all the little bitty opportunities where you can blow their mind by being unique and creating more perceived value. And ultimately, you're going to make more profit by doing that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love what you just told us. Thank you, Josh, for sharing the example of the restaurant with us. So what would you say are the first steps we should consider and take in order to create the life cycle?
Well, what you want to do is, first of all, you have to begin with the end in mind. What do you want? And I know I already said that. And then you have to reverse engineer, how to provide that to your customer. For example, if you want to sell cars to people, okay, you could sell them a $5,000 car, or you could sell them a 2016 Chevy Corvette Stingray. It's a $120,000
Right.
car. Both of them are transportation. So at a basic level, your product, your service, your podcast, your local business, your internet business, you're providing something which can be compared to anybody else's same thing, right? So how do you separate the value, the way that it feels? You do that, and it's hard to answer specifically because it's totally different.
Right,
In my cleaning business, where we had so much success, it was by the way that we answered the phone, and always answering the phone. When we did the estimate at the customer's house, we had lettered trucks with uniformed employees with iPads. We would print out the estimate sheet, had a picture of their actual home on the sheet, and even though our price was double the other local competitors, we would get the job 9 out of 10 times because it just feels like a better value. So back to the car example. If you have this little junky car and you have the Corvette, and I tell you, you can have whichever car you want for $20,000. The Corvette is a higher priced car, but it's a better value because of the way you feel when you grab the steering wheel. People need to feel like they're doing business with a 5-star hotel when they buy your stuff. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm passionate about it because that's another strategy too, to manage the entire relationship cycle forever. And people don't have anything to compare you to. Maybe you send them a gift after they do business with you that they weren't expecting, like physically mail them a brownie or something, or send them a thank you note. We forget how to really serve people in today's economy. Everything's digital, everything's automated. You need to spend some time being strategic and unique with your own personality. How can I get inside my customer's head and let them know that we are not just another provider of X?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, what you just shared with us, this last point, really touches into what we talked about a few episodes ago with John Dwyer. We talked about what he calls the wow factor and wow marketing. So that's exactly what you just shared. So the idea of getting a competitive advantage, standing out, making a great impression by doing something that the customer isn't expecting. So it can be a discount, it can be a bonus or something like that. And you said it, that's a very good way to stand out regardless of the niche we are in, regardless of the country we are in or the state or the city, for the fact that nowadays most people don't really do that anymore. They focus on, and the next social media platform and advertising money and these kind of things. So they don't think so much about the individual. And you talked about creating a 5-star hotel experience. So in order to do that, we have to focus on each individual so that each person is really going to feel like, okay, Josh is treating me as a person rather than, well, just one of the 200 customers, or I'm just a number in his email list. I'm not even a person, right?
Right, exactly. And oh my gosh, people, it doesn't matter how small your company is. It doesn't matter how big it is. This is massive stuff. You have to hear me. I mean, the other example I like, Jan, is bread. You go to the grocery store and you have bread, and every loaf of bread costs $2, let's say. Okay, but then if you look to the right, there's this other rack of bread, and the bread on that rack costs $12. And it's confusing, right? Because bread is bread. Well, no, bread isn't bread, because the bread on this other rack, which is where we want to move your business, everybody listening, we want to move you out of the commodity rack. You're not just another loaf of white bread. We're going to put you on the $12 rack. It's wood. The packaging's different. The shape, the shape of the loaf is different. It smells a little different. And all those intangibles, that's what perceived value is. And so a certain segment of people always want the best value, not the lowest price. They are the best types of customers to have. They're not as price sensitive. They're much more loyal in the long run. And of course, you make more money up front as well.
Right. Yeah. Which isn't bad. And if we look at St. Jim and the conversation we're having, Josh, can you kind of walk us through the way St. Jim works a little bit and how we can use it to do some of the things we're talking about here, number one. And number two, if maybe you also have some alternative options for people who may not be using St. Jim but still would like to implement the things we're talking about here.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, St. Jim right now is available in the U.S. only, but it's coming to Canada, the U.K., and Australia in the future. But all it is, it's super simple. Okay, it's an app that you put on your phone, and you can send physical postcards, letters. You can send emails. You can send gifts like sea salt gourmet caramels or greeting cards, whatever. All these different things. You can send them to your customers in like 12 seconds from your phone. So let's say that you do business with someone and you want to make sure you engage them for the next year. You want them to make sure that they're taken care of for the next year. What you do is you push a button on your phone and it will send them what we call a sequence. And that sequence might send a postcard right now that says, listen, I just thank you for doing business with us. But then 2 weeks later, it sends them an email that says, hey, again, we just want to follow up. Hey, can you leave us a review on our Facebook page? Click here. And then 3 months later after that, it sends them a gift. And it's like, hey, we're just thinking of you. We're not selling you anything. We just want to let you know we care. And then a year later, it does something else. The point is that by 12 seconds of effort right now, you can manage that relationship in a physical and unique and tangible and high-level way for the next year or for the next 2 years or whatever. It works really well for people who work, face-to-face with people, because you can also add a custom image on the fronts of all these letters and cards and stuff. So you could take a selfie with your client, or you could take a picture of their dog or whatever the case is, and it prints, on the card. So it's highly personalized. And it's a sequence, which is unbelievably powerful. If you can't use SendGym or don't want to, you can still do this stuff. It's still valuable. We've just made it, down to pushing one button. We just simplified it. But I did the stuff manually when I was growing my business, and that's why we had so much success.
Okay, actually, it's great the examples you share with us, Jim, because I think they made it really clear that first of all, what SendGym can do for people who are here with us, who are in the States, and soon you said also Canada, the UK, Australia, but also for everybody else, people like me who I'm in Finland or all the other people in other parts of the world. You said it's something that can be done even with our email marketing software. I mean, if I think of something like Active Campaign, that is the one I use, Josh, and it's something really allows us to easily create and set up autoresponder series that are triggered, depending on certain behaviors by people who join our email list. That's really great, and I like the fact that you talked about following up. It can be the day after, or a couple of days after, the week after, a few months after, and also there is something that I think is critical in what you just shared with us, Josh, which is you said, hey, we are just thinking about you. We aren't selling you anything. And I think that's very, very critical to understand that we shouldn't reach out to our community only when we have something to sell and we are kind of like, okay, guys, time to take out your wallets because here comes the next thing. No. It's important to really nurture our community, foster it, and really provide people with value without expecting anything in return. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Well said. Couldn't have said it better. It's completely true. It's important to all of us. Even if you do it in your own way, just take action and be intentional.
Yeah, exactly. Being intentional. And again, what we're talking about here, Josh, really ties into the early part of our conversation when you talked about the clarity and having the end goal in mind and reverse engineering from there. So it's nice to see when everything is coming together during an interview. And also, speaking of things coming together, I want to mention a few things that are in the show notes. You find the link to sendgym.com, to Josh's website, automategrowsell.com, and also his Twitter handle. So if you have questions, you want to connect with Josh, maybe you simply want to give him a virtual high five, you can do that. He's on Twitter at automatejosh. Okay, Josh, so we have been touching on different things here throughout the conversation. You told us a little bit more about yourself and the story behind SendGym. You talked about the importance of focusing on network marketing rather than just the transactions. You share some things to do in order to create an amazing customer life cycle. And now we touched a little bit more on the kind of the more practical steps, so what we can do. And do you have anything to add when it comes to creating a system that generates more leads, customer loyalty, sales?
Yeah, here's the thing. This blew my mind when I first heard it. But everyone listening to this show right now, your life already is full of systems. So the question isn't, should we be systematic in our business? No, we already are.
Right.
The way that we talk to our wife, the way we engage our kids, the way that we lead our employees, the way that we cast vision, the way that we talk to ourselves, all this stuff, you got to ask yourself, not should you add systems, you got to say, are the systems of my life serving me well? Mm-hmm. And for me, I came from nothing. I built a big business. I sold that. I was able to move my 4 kids and my high school sweetheart to Costa Rica. Now I have location freedom. It's unbelievable. And it's easy to look at something like that and say, oh, lucky guy. Look at him, some lucky.
Right, yeah.
No, there was pain. There was suffering. But I was intentional about determining what it is I wanted, and I worked really hard for an extended period of time on it. And you can do the same thing. You don't need a Harvard education to make $1 million in business. You need to be relentless and be intentional and really iterate the current systems in your life to make them point you towards the thing that you want more than anything.
Man, I love it. Thank you, really, Josh, for sharing these inspiring words with all of us. I think, it's really, as I said, I think it's lighting the fire inside people here, because you said it is about really wanting something, working really, really hard for it, not being afraid of testing things out, taking risks. And you said we already are using systems, even we kind of maybe aren't aware about them. So the question is, are those systems serving us well? And hopefully the conversation Josh and I have been having here is helpful to you. Again, if you have any questions, you can connect with Josh on Twitter at AutomateJosh or on the sites you find in the show notes. And Josh, to wrap up this fantastic conversation, I want to ask you something about your show. So I said that you have Quick Talk podcast. So can you tell all of us a little bit more about your show and what we can expect by tuning in episode after episode?
Well, absolutely. The podcast that I have is designed more from the perspective of a local kind of brick and mortar traditional business, but it's still applicable to anybody else. We talk about systems and how to, to optimize the architecture of your company and how to win at business. Because the thing is winning has a lot more to do with mindset than it does with anything else. And so I try to inspire people. If you haven't noticed, I'm a passionate guy. And my wife always is saying, Josh, chill out. I can't. And coming from nothing and being able to see what's possible at this stage of my life, I can't slow down, man, because there could be someone listening to this or listening to my podcast that one sentence that you said or one sentence that I said could really give them the courage to push forward. So I just want to help, inspire, and provide value. That's what the podcast does. It's one of the funnest things that I do. You can check it out. It's quicktalkpodcast.com.
Great. So you heard it. If you want to get more inspiring lessons, some actionable tips from Josh and some of the guests he features on the Quick Talk podcast, you know where to find it. Once again, make sure to check out the show notes with the links with everything, and I mean everything Josh and I have talked about. And Josh, to wrap it up, do you have any final, you have been already sharing some powerful stuff here, but do you have some final words of encouragement, some final tips for all the people who have joined us?
Yeah, never ever give up. Like Winston Churchill said, never, ever, ever give up, no matter what. You can pivot, you can tweak, you can take a break or a timeout for a minute to collect your thoughts. But if you just don't stop, you will win. Mm-hmm. And, I own a software company now with employees from all over the world. I don't know how to write code. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. We can all do so much more than we think we can. But it starts with, like I said in the very beginning, creating space for yourself to think, defining your why or your destination, and then being relentless from this day to that day.
Love it. Powerful, powerful words to wrap up this powerful as well and inspiring conversation. Josh, thank you so much for being here on the show, for telling us more about SendGym, the importance of network marketing, and really for providing us with a lot of fire, entrepreneurial fire. I really, really am thankful.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure, and I really mean that. Thank you.
And we are back. Joshua, thank you so much for the inspiration, for the tips, for the resources. I really, really appreciate you. And you heard it. Some of the things you can do to stand out even if you're in a very busy niche. And you may think, well, okay, Jan, I have only a few customers. Or maybe you're on the other side of the coin and you're like, Jan, I have so many customers. How am I going to do this? Well, just take a breath. Think about your current customers and ask yourself, what can I, as a solopreneur, or if you have a team, what can we do to make their experience with our brand, with our products, with our services, with our website, with our podcast, with our book, incredible? It's a big question and there isn't an easy answer, but I want you to think about that and start to take the first steps, because the best way to put together an action plan, to execute it, to achieve success, is to really take action. No excuses. Get started. Again, the show notes for today's conversation are over at yanilunga.com/episode 168. If you have any questions, you want some feedback, whatever, I'm here for you. So don't hesitate to send me an email over at yanilunga.com. All right, so this is it for today. I'll be back with you next week. But again, if there is anything, reach out to me. Take care. Yanni Lunga here, over and out.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.yanilunga.com.